Good morning, this is Shelby Law with the Great Basin Fire Potential Briefing for Wednesday, August 7th, 2024. We continue to see some major fire potential impacts over the next few days, including wind today across southern Idaho into western Wyoming and the higher elevations of northern Utah, and across much of western and northwest Nevada, with some isolated storms further south over southern and southeast Utah. On Thursday, the winds continue across northwest Nevada, but we see some storms moving a little bit further north in southern Utah, and then a few storms here in central Idaho or central Nevada. On Friday, the stronger winds move into northwest and northern Nevada, more thunderstorms across the state of Utah, and then we also see some isolated storms move into the central Idaho mountains and western Wyoming. Yesterday was a quieter day for lightning activity than the day before. We did see some storms over eastern Idaho, up into western Wyoming, and over the higher elevations of central and eastern Utah, but clear to the west. Initial attack for yesterday is shown here. We had 31 new fires for over 2,000 acres, and our large fire growth was just under 9,000 acres. Current ERCs are shown here. We have some higher stations with higher values and stations with lower values. This is what happens when we have some thunderstorms and a day here or there of higher relative humidities, but overall fire danger is still quite high across Idaho and portions of Nevada and eastern Utah. This morning's satellite imagery shows a ridge of high pressure in place across the southern half of the Great Basin and into the desert southwest, leading to continued warm temperatures across the south here. And then we have this long-range trough over the northern Rockies, northern plains, that's keeping things a little bit cooler up there, but also generating the winds that we'll see over the next couple of days. This morning's satellite imagery on the visible satellite is showing our smoke. This morning we can see smoke in place across much of Idaho, northern Nevada, and into northern Utah today. Here's that smoke forecast for this afternoon and tomorrow afternoon. Still a lot of smoke in place across Idaho and northern Nevada and northern Utah. And on Thursday the smoke moves even a little bit further south into eastern Nevada and central Utah. Okay, for today, again, we have high pressure across the southern half of the Great Basin with that long wave trough to the north and east, generating those stronger winds over eastern Idaho, western Wyoming, and across the higher elevations of northern Utah. We do have high risk out for those winds and lower relative humidities. A closer look at the winds here, gusts 35 miles an hour or so across the upper Snake River Plain and into western Wyoming and the higher elevations of northern and central Utah, and then we also have some gusts along the Sierra Front as well. Minimum relative humidities are in the teens across the north and the single digits over Nevada and Utah. Temperatures are shown here on the left. Pretty warm still in Utah and Nevada with highs near 100 degrees. A little bit cooler in Idaho as we're closer to the trough up there. Still highs in the 90s and a little bit cooler at the higher elevations. Precipitation for today is shown on the right, expecting those storms to develop once again over eastern Utah and over the higher elevations of southern Utah. On Thursday, more of the same is expected with the high pressure ridge in place over the central and southern Great Basin. We don't have any high risk on Thursday. Winds are still a little bit breezy along the Sierra Front and some breezy winds here and there in Idaho, but below critical levels on Thursday. And then thunderstorms again developing over the central and southern Utah mountains. We'll start to see a little bit of an increase in moisture from the south on Thursday. That'll continue through the weekend. On Friday, moisture continues to move up mainly into Utah, but we will see some moisture moving a little bit further northward into the central Idaho mountains and even western Wyoming. We do have high risk for some of those storms moving back in, and then winds along the Sierra Front pick up as well. As this little trough moves into the Pacific Northwest, kind of enhancing those winds and drawing some moisture into the north. So the winds shown here on the left pick up over western and northwest Nevada with gusts up to 35 miles an hour or so. And then gusty outflow winds in Utah can be seen here on the wind map, as well as gusty outflow winds across portions of Idaho as that moisture moves in. Precipitation shown on the right here showing thunderstorms and moisture possible across much of Utah and even into portions of eastern Nevada on Friday, and then moisture moving further northward into Idaho and western Wyoming. These precip totals are probably overdone across the north, but we'll be keeping a closer eye on it. Three-day precip totals are shown here with the best chance for wetting rain over the higher elevations of southern and eastern Utah, and then some lighter precip totals possible over the east central Idaho mountains and western Wyoming. On Saturday, moisture continues to move northward into Utah with drier air really moving into northern Nevada and southern Idaho. We do have high risk triggers issued for those winds in Idaho and along the Sierra Front. On Sunday, a trough moves into the Pacific Northwest, which will help keep moisture surging up north, mainly into Utah and up into eastern or western Wyoming as well on Sunday. Some pretty good chance for a wetting rain in Utah, but dry across western Nevada and up into Idaho. Gusty winds beginning to move into the area as early as Sunday across the north and west. On Monday, that trough still continuing to move a little bit further eastward along the Pacific Northwest, and winds really should pick up. We will probably start to introduce some high risk early next week with those winds moving into the northern and western part of the Great Basin with moisture still remaining on the east side. And then again, continued winds across the western half of the Great Basin as that trough remains over the Pacific Northwest and moisture lingering over Utah. The 7-day precip totals are shown here. We can see a little bit of enhancement in precip over the central Idaho mountains and western Wyoming in that Friday to Saturday time period, and then moisture continuing over Utah. Those wetting rains starting across the south on Thursday and then continuing into the weekend as the moisture moves a little bit further northward each day through Sunday. The extended forecast for August 14th through the 20th keeps temperatures cool along the west coast and really warm across the south, so we're kind of in between that zone here in the Great Basin, and then below normal chances for precip over the Great Basin with possibly some above normal over the Pacific Northwest, so we'll see how that pans out. This concludes today's fire potential briefing. Please check back tomorrow for the latest updates.